Okay, great. All right, so here are a few questions that I really liked that I want us to try to answer together first, and then we'll zoom in more on the text. So this was a question a lot of you asked, actually, this notion of, and we'll come to it in detail, right? If the woman is a helper for the man, right, there is here a hierarchy, right? And therefore, from the onset, gender relations are unequal. So we're going to talk about this today. So I'm putting this question in parentheses for now. Okay, here's a great question from Ram. Why was the woman created from the rib and not from the dust like the man? This is a really interesting, right? The man is, or at least the earthling, before the woman comes out. So he's created from clay and spirit. Actually, I'm answering the question now. Was the woman really what do you think about this? The woman is created from the man and the man is created from the dust. Does this say anything interesting? Any idea as to why this detail is happening? Okay, let's start with Taich. Go ahead.
Well, when you think about it, let's bring some mathematics into that. The transitive property, A equals B, B equals C, therefore A equals C. So technically, the woman was created from the earth as well, since the man was created from the earth. So I don't know why there's controversy or question there, but I don't think that God got lazy or anything. It was just I don't know. In my opinion, I don't think there was anything different. There was anything there's particular reason, but it could be.
Good, yeah, actually you're right in a sense, since the earthling, right, not the man, is created from dust and spirit, and then it's split, right? Remember last time we talked about how the earthling, which is the translation for Adam, right, the name, Adam literally means earthling. So that's not yet the man, right? That's just this kind of neutral entity and then both emerge from that. Remember I mentioned how the man emerges simultaneously with the woman, right? The ish emerges simultaneously with the isha, at least in the text, right? Okay, let's see if somebody else has a contribution. I see another hand. Pierre-Antoine, go ahead.
Right. Hi. This is gonna sound crazy, but okay. So you know how I guess I feel like in the text it kind of makes an emphasis on taken out. Like it says in 23, it says she was taken out of man. Do you know like when a woman is with child's in a womb, like a legitimate womb, okay, and you know how. It sounds so weird. You know how womb starts with WO, and she came out of the man. So you attach war and then man and it's woman.
Yes, it's a man with a womb. That's the actual meaning in English, right? Yeah.
That's what I think, but I don't know if that clarifies anything. That just popped in my head. So yeah.
So I'm not quite getting what you're saying with regards to the taken out.
I think because it's in a sense when a woman births a child, it comes from the womb. So it's basically saying a woman was birthed from a man, but not
yes,
in that sense.
I think it works because just like the human being is taken out, or the baby is taken out of the woman, it seems almost like the man here has given birth to the woman to a certain extent, right? This is the first and last birth. So it is, I mean, I think the rabbis, I forget what they say, but there are some others, right, who have noticed this notion of the birth, right? A woman being born from a man. And I don't remember too much what they said, but other people have mentioned this. Okay, I just wanted to stop on that briefly. Here's another question, right? This is, strangely enough, I don't know, I feel like chapter 2, the first 3 verses or 4 verses should belong to chapter 1. I don't know. Because then they end with such is the story of the heaven and earth when they were created. I don't know who divided this in chapters, but I'm not too happy with the way the text was divided here. As you know, right, the original text has no chapters, right? So this is a kind of arbitrary. But I do feel like based on the way it's written that it should end, chapter 1 should end actually chapter 2 verse 4, right? And then we have a new narrative, right? But we can talk about this notion of the Sabbath, right, briefly. And this has always intrigued me too, right? Why did God rest, right? I mean, feels like God is God, right? Why would he need to rest? Anybody have any ideas about this rest of God? Stage, go ahead.
Well, why does rest always have to mean literal rest, as in you have to sleep? Maybe take a break from something in a sense. I've done this enough, let me get into another task, or that's something in general. For example, God says, okay, for now it's enough. Let's continue. Let's see how the man will do. So on. The day passes. Let's continue working.
So rest, of course, is the
Depends
word.
on depends on how it will go. I guess cause and effect. Unfortunately, it went the wrong way, but.
So I'm not following you because the word rest is the word that the author chose, right? Which means to stop working and to rest, right? So it's not like a different metaphysical state that he's in. It is described, right, in very human terms. So this is why I'm intrigued, right? Why is God, who is supposed to be, no end, no beginning, right? Why all of a sudden he's now resting? Nobody else? Alim, go ahead.
Maybe this ties back to like the idea of man being made in God's image. Maybe God isn't like this like super powerful being that maybe like he's, yes, he is powerful, but he's like man in that he needs to rest.
Yeah, it's intriguing, right? I mean, we are seeing all kinds of strange cracks in the story, right? The first time we saw a crack was in Genesis 1 when we saw that the creation of man was not deemed good, right? There was something unfinished, and now here God needs rest. Well, this is not the God we envisioned, right? This is a kind of God more vulnerable, more, kind of. So it's maybe cracks in the image of God that we have is another thing going on here, perhaps, right? I agree. Let's see, Olivera, you want to try your hand at this? Go ahead.
Yeah. I don't say that. I don't recall if it says that he. 1 second. He needs rest. It just says that he rested.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that he needs it. But I would add that I think there's a time for things to happen, and sometimes you just need to pause. Doesn't mean that you are sleeping, but to accept the time which things have to happen, because you don't plant a seed today hoping to get a fruit today. There's a time for where the process.
Okay, I like that. God is establishing a rhythm, right? He's saying there is a rhythm for work, a rhythm for rest. He's setting a calendar, kind of, right? He's setting a kind of a biological clock, right? A cosmological clock, right? This is the rhythm. And I'm showing you the rhythm by resting, right? By the way, there's been interesting studies about the work week, right? I don't know if you've heard about this, but there was talk about extending the work week beyond the 7 days, right? Just to be more productive. And it didn't work, right? People were going insane, right? They needed this kind of 7th day, right? I mean, have you ever wondered why we don't work for a whole month and then have some rest? Much more productive, right? So people actually tried this, right? And it showed that there were some psychological issues with that, or in mental health issues, physical health issues. So maybe God is simply establishing a calendar. He's establishing a rhythm of yin and yang, right? Rest, work, effort, non-effort. So this is very nicely put, Olivera. I like that. Let's see. There's one more, maybe. Granik, go ahead.
Yeah, I think also another possible idea is like that he's sort of like it's like the imagery of God sort of resting in the universe, and like kind of like he kind of created this whole thing, and like there's kind of a thought that maybe he just left and took up and left and like doesn't care about it anymore. So I guess the idea of him resting is now like he's kind of settled in his universe, like and caring for it instead of going off and going on to some other, creating another universe, you know?
Yes, I love that, because if you recall the Greeks, right, God creates and then withdraws, right? He's the first cause, and then we don't hear of him anymore, right? Here we have a kind of God making a home in the universe, right? Dwelling in the universe through the rest. Beautiful thought, Brannick. I really like it. You guys are doing great. King.
I think since it's hard for us to speculate as man to figure out what he's doing when he says rest, that we project that, okay, well, he did all this work, then he has to be tired, or that he has to be doing something else. But I do agree that in terms of the language itself, it would mean that he is no longer working. Whether or not he is tired or sleeping isn't necessarily the case.
Yeah.
We just project that idea.
Yes.
But again, it's inconceivable why he would choose to stop working and, you know, not just continue going into the action.
Yeah, excellent. This is why Oliveira makes the same point as you, right? That maybe it's not about him being tired. Maybe something else is going on, right? And then I kind of went on this, you know, interpretation that maybe he's setting a rhythm, right, for us. Excellent. Okay, great. Let's go to now let's zoom in more now into, actually, before we go to the creation of the woman, there is the command, right? Not to eat the tree. So I want to stop on that a little bit, because this is the foundation for what we're going to do in Genesis 3. So one of you remarked, who was it? I think maybe Alim, right? It's the tree of knowledge, right? Between good and evil. And Alim mentions that, oh, I thought it was an evil tree, right? But now we notice it's not quite an evil tree. It's simply the tree of the knowledge between good and evil. So this is interesting, right? So let's talk a little bit about this tree. Why do you think, and I had a colleague once ask me this, right? She's like, God is absurd. He creates a beautiful universe and then he messes it up by placing a tree in the middle of, by the way, notice, that tree is not somewhere on the outskirts, right? It's straight up in the middle. And then God is, I mean, who does that? Imagine you have a kid and you're like, don't eat the cookies that I'm putting right here in front of your nose. Don't touch. I'm bringing them to your room. I'm putting them on the table right in full view. Don't touch now, right? Who does this? What is God doing? Right? It's almost like he's pushing the tree into the face of the human, saying, here's a tree in the middle of the garden that you will look at every day. And by the way, you can't touch that, right? So this is a very strange moment. I want to stop a little bit on that. What do you think is happening here with this tree? Why is God, and what does it mean, knowledge of good and evil? And why is this knowledge forbidden, right? This is a fundamental question. Let's see a little bit of your answers. Okay. I will start with Ahmad. Go ahead, Ahmad.
I think that it allows human beings to start seeing in a dualistic perspective, in a duality, rather than before the tree of knowledge, everything is just one thing. You can't really label or distinguish between two.
Okay, you're on the right track, but notice that it is forbidden. So what does this say about dualistic thinking? What do you think?
Also that there's no free will in it then.
What do you mean?
So before they ate from the tree of knowledge, like eating from the tree of knowledge is itself an act of free will.
Oh, okay. You start to distinguish through the tree. So you already...
After eating the fruit, then you can, then like all the dualities of existence become manifest to you. You start seeing in that dualistic mode. Before that, it's just, everything is just one thing. You can't really, there's no me, you, this, that relationship.
I really like that. I was thinking you were going somewhere else, but this is interesting. Let me summarize this. I hope you guys are taking notes, right, from these comments, right? This is excellent. Before the tree, there is no you, I, this, that, right? Everything is one blob. The tree is what creates distinctions, this, that. And therefore, Ahmad is saying what creates agency and free will, right? If you don't have a choice, if there is not duality, this or that, right? You cannot choose, therefore you're not truly free. Therefore the tree might be the doorway or the gateway to freedom, right? Interesting idea, Ahmad. Well done, I like that. That's interesting. Nice, good philosophical, okay, let's see. Sosa, I haven't heard you for a while, go ahead.
Okay, first I just want to thank you because I said the exact same thing. The fact that the tree is literally in the middle of the garden. It's not hidden away where you have to like actually go ahead and try and get evil in your life. No, it's right in front of you. Like that's, I mentioned that. But I think one thing to mention too is the fact that there's possibly a good argument that like by seeing this evil knowledge and like rejecting it, it could bring you closer to heaven, because it's like, okay, this isn't good, so let me not do it. That's a good possibility. But I personally think it's a matter of like, you know, like everyone has heard like, don't touch the stove, you're going to get hurt. I think it's a matter of like that. We're being told this warning that this is not good, don't do it. But by going ahead and doing it, we're going to learn from experience, like, yes, this actually isn't, you know, a good thing to happen, because we're always told like one thing to not do, but you know, some situations like it could actually be not be as bad as, you know, what we were told. But when it comes to like not touching the stove and everything, we have to learn through the pain and through experience that it is actually bad from it. So when it comes to the whole evil tree thing, we would have to go through it, know it's bad in order for it to happen, instead of it just being a one-way street of, you do this, you're going to hell, you're a sinner, you're bad, you're terrible, go to hell, you know?
Okay, yes. So interesting. What a lot of feminists actually are working along your lines, so saying that the tree was really an initiation into adulthood, right? Before the tree, there is no transgression, and therefore there's no possibility of growth, possibility of experiential knowledge of good and evil, right? And so people are kind of naive before the tree, right? So a lot of feminist scholars actually say that the tree was kind of a rite of passage into a kind of adult experiential knowledge, right? So yes, I think that's an interesting take on that. Let's see, Pierre-Antoine, and then King, and then Stage.
Never mind, because like pretty much Sotha like touched on what I was about to like say. But, yeah.
Okay, very good. So let's see, King, go ahead.
I think Ahmad made a really really cool point that in the act of eating the apple, you go against God's will effectively, and that in and of itself is like the sin. Um, but there is the duality of like free will and determinism at play there. And when God says that if you eat of the tree, then you will certainly die. I think he's like reminding us that for humans, death is always around the corner. And I said in my writing that eating from the fruit leads to and this is what is being said. Eating from the fruit leads to the death of one's innocence, and then would be the transition to adulthood, because um, your innocence dies in that you're now made aware of what is good and evil, and that you would have to act on that knowledge, either to do good or to not, or to do evil or to not, because now that you're aware of it, it is no longer ignorance in your actions.
Very good. Yeah, excellent. So I see a lot of you are sensing the tree as a kind of gateway into, and maybe that's what Eve was sensing, right? When she ate of the fruit. Maybe you're in a way helping her case. Thank you. I wanted to add one point before I get started about this dualism. In another class that I taught earlier with this same tree issue, there was a really interesting explanation that dualistic thinking, is considered to be forbidden, should be forbidden. And this connects us to a lot of the Eastern traditions, which talk against dualistic thinking. And I don't know if you're familiar with Buddhism or Hinduism or even Taoism, right? A lot of these Eastern philosophies emphasize not judging, not knowing, not making assumptions or judgments, not entering this dualistic thinking, because in a way this cuts us off, they believe, from true reality, right? So in a way God might be saying also, right, according to this other student, that dualistic thinking is something we should avoid, right? So I'm kind of taking the opposite route of Ahmad, even though I totally embrace what he was saying, right? Stage, go ahead.
Well, I think that this is pretty I'd say self-explanatory. We spoke about this in the group, and I believe that it was something that it was his own. God said you can have everything in the garden, just not touch this. And it was smack in the middle It was pretty much a reminder to the human that it's pretty much, I'm the boss. You're not going to touch this, because it's in the garden. Always keep remembering that when you're walking around, you see that you know who I am. I am God. I'm your father. You're not the one who's in charge. And then he says, if you eat from this tree, he gives a choice. If you do, however, touch my tree, you will die.
Right.
There's a choice right there. Don't touch it. If you do, you will die. You have a choice whether you can choose to die, you can choose to live. But no matter what, this tree signifies my right as a ruler. That's
Very
I
good.
think that's exactly what it is.
Very good. Okay, very good. To go along with what Stage is saying, I want to emphasize, there's two ways to see the tree, right? As we're seeing in the classroom, right? Some see the tree as something that in a way we were meant to experience at one point in order to find freedom or maturity and so forth. But there's another way to see the tree also as the introduction of limitation. And I want to say a few words about that, because we are going to come back to this when we study the Tower of Babel, right? Adam could eat everything except one thing. How is this good that there was limitation placed on the powers of Adam? What do you think is positive about there being limitation in a place where everything is accessible, right? In other words, what would Adam look like if he could take anything he wanted? If there was not one thing that was limiting him? What is God really teaching him by placing a limitation on him? I'd like to know this. Okay, let me see a few of you. Okay, Pierre-Antoine, go ahead. And then William.
I think it's teaching just discipline, because it's like you're restraining yourself. Like, I think we spoke in the past of like what is pleasure, like what is pleasure supposed to be, and like when you just delve into your pleasures all the time, like you have no sense of discipline, like you have no restraint. So if like you're just taking from everything, then like what's the point? Like you're not expressing discipline.
Okay, and why is discipline so important? Pierre-Antoine, what does it teach you? What does it allow? What does
discipline? What does okay, I didn't think I'll get so far. Discipline, I think, I don't know, I feel like that's a hard one. I just think it sets like characteristic, like it sets like your standards as a person, in a sense, like, yeah, like what Sosa said, like it's self-control, and that it's something that God even furthers, like tells his prophets, and like even later on in the Bible, like that is a fruit of the Spirit in a sense. So that it's important to, like, I guess, express that, like having self-control. But yeah.
Okay, well said. Williams, do you want to add to that? Go ahead.
Well, I'm just gonna say, it puts in check your greed and differs from what you want and what you need.
Williams, you're always reading my mind. Stop it. Right? Actually, this is one of the interpretations I give to this passage, right? If there's not a check on your lust or greed or desires, there's basically not going to be room in that garden for another human being, right? If you have access to everything and everything is yours, right? There's no opportunity for ethics, right? There's no opportunity. If you're always taking everything and never holding back, right? I'm thinking in any type of relationship, right? If there's no control on what you want in a relationship, the other person just going to be another thing you eat, right? So this pedagogy of limitation is paving the way for the emergence of the other. Are you following me on this? This is a very important point which you need to jot down, right? Let me say it again, right? This pedagogy of the limitation, God is teaching the first human being limitation, is actually paving the way for the emergence of the other. Because if you can't limit yourself, right? If you can't control yourself, if you can't put yourself in check or rein yourself in, there's never going to be another human being in your life. with their own desires and their own impulses. You're always going to be taking over everything, right? The only way another human being can exist next to us is if we have a control over what we want for their sake, right? Oh, you want that too? Okay, here, right? You can have it, right? I'm not going to take everything. Sharing is a limitation. Oh, I'm not going to take this for me. I'm going to allow you to have it, right? So the conditions, make sure you write this down, the conditions of possibility for the other, the emergence of the other in our lives is the ability to limit ourselves. Any romantic relationship will teach you this real fast, right? I want this, well, I want that, right? And now you're in trouble because nobody learns how to limit, right? So in a way, perhaps God is preparing Adam for the emergence of Eve here, right? This is just a thought. Okay, now I sort of need to move on. So let's get into, excellent, right? This is really, you guys are making really good comments, right? This is the direction. Notice, I want you to notice how many different interpretations we have of a given passage, right? This is very typical of Hebraic literature, right? When you go even beyond the Bible to the Talmud, it's like this, right? This is showing us, right, how rich the biblical text is, right? Anyone can see, you can't see infinite amount of things, right? You can't see things that aren't there, obviously, but one given passage can really give rise to multiple interpretations, right? That connect to individuals differently, right? Different individuals can get something out of the text, can get something different out of the text that in a way nurtures them, and someone else gets something else, and someone else gets something else, right? This is, the Bible in a way is a kind of food that nourishes everyone, right? In a way, everyone can get something out of it. So you have a really good example of that. Okay, now I need to zoom in the remaining time on the creation of the woman, because this is going to be the foundation of everything else I will say about the woman throughout the class, right? So I wanted to ask you guys this, right? Why do you think he puts Adam to sleep to create the woman? A few of you answered that in your papers, actually. Anybody want to quickly tell me why he had to be put to sleep before the woman could emerge? Why couldn't Adam be a co-creator? Notice that Eve is a co-creator with God for her own children, right? When Eve has her first child, she says, with the Lord, I created this, right? But Adam here is not the co-creator with God. Why is that? Granik, go ahead.
I don't know if it's going to be so much more than you just said, but I guess the idea is that like God doesn't want Adam to feel like he's sort of the one who produced Eve, and he's the one, he's sort of like that like God is the rules over him and he rules over Eve, so it doesn't, God didn't want that relationship to emerge. So if he's asleep, then it kind of makes him into like a passive participant in this in this process of producing Eve, and he's sort of just the raw material, so you can't really take credit for that in any way.
Okay, very good, right? Adam can't go around afterwards saying, I made you. Right? Or what's this song? There's a song, there's a really famous song where the guy is like, I made you everything you are. How can you leave me? Right? I forgot the name of the song. There's many songs like that, right? So in a way, God is saying, no, you have no part in this. Right? Excellent. King, would you like to add?
I want to emphasize what Granik said. You cannot consent if you're asleep. And with the theme of determinism and free will, God has already determined that Adam will have a partner, because he said that he basically says that humans they're not as good alone, they need a helper, they need to work together. And so Adam can't consent, which is why he's put to sleep, so that he has somebody else to work with.
You're talking about Adam's consent? I don't see him consenting. Where?
Right, that's what I'm saying. He can't consent because he's asleep.
No consent, executive decision. Right. You need this. Because maybe Adam would have been like, no, we're good. I'm good. I don't need this. I don't need this woman. Right? I have a whole
doesn't matter. You're having it.
Very good. I like that. The lack of consent, maybe. Okay. Let's zoom in closer right now. So let's remember, now we're going to zoom into the name that God gives to the woman, which is the helper, right? We're going to talk about this. Let's situate the background of this text and the background of the interpretation, right? And make sure you write this down, that typically this word for helper, and a lot of you brought this up, points in the history of interpretation to a subservient help, right? The man is in control and the woman is supposed to help the man's career, right? So for example, I'll give you some examples, right? The man is the medical doctor and the woman is the nurse, right? The man is university professor, the woman is an elementary school teacher. This is actually true, right? Historically, man is a pastor, woman is the pianist, piano player in the church, right? So man is the head of the house, right? Woman is, you know, the helper of, you know, kind of, you know, making it possible, right? So we do have a history of interpretation which has looked at this passage, and a lot of you pointed it out, as creating a hierarchy, right? And also the man is created first and then the woman second, right? To which the Talmud responds, by the way, funny story, right? It talks about this, the man was created before the woman, and it says, well, in the order of things, right, if the most important always comes before, right, then the mosquito would be more important than the man because it was created before the man, right? So in a way that those Talmudist sages say the woman was created last, meaning she was the most important being, right? As you progress through the creation of things, things become more and more complex, more and more exquisite, more and more intricate, and the woman, in a way, they say, is the crown of creation. She was created last, meaning she is the highest achievement, right, of the creation. So so that's kind of the backdrop, right? So I want to actually go in a different direction than these interpretations and study the actual Hebrew here for helpmeet. In the Hebrew, it is ezer kenegdo. Okay, so ezer translates help, and kenegdo is badly translated. We'll see why. Like him, right? This is not the right translation, right? Okay, so let's go into this word first, ezer, right? Which means help. If you start to think about this word, you can try to put a slide here, okay? If we start to read this about this word in the rest of the Hebrew Bible, right? One of the ways we can interpret a passage is to see how that word is used elsewhere, right? Now, this word help actually is only very rarely used for the woman. Most of the Bible ascribes the word help to another being. Does anybody know who is this being who is the most often referred to as the help in the Hebrew Bible? And it's not the woman. In a general, when you look at all of the occurrences of the word help, ezer, it is not ascribed to the woman, it is ascribed to another being, and most of the cases apply to him. Let's see if you can, if you know this. Stage, do you know the answer?
I believe are the angels.
The angels are
Angels
messengers. They're
Yeah,
messengers. It's not the same word.
Throughout the whole Bible, they're helpers. They are, and
Yes.
Michael is also considered as the helper. Jesus is a creator, co-creator of what.
You're right that they're helpers, but the word is there, right?
Okay,
And you have to know Hebrew to identify it, right?
I guess
This word is not given to the angels, although you're right that the angels do help, but they're given to another being. King, you want to try?
Forgot to put it on my hand, sorry.
Okay. Nobody knows? Ram, no, Esther is not the answer. It's systematically given to the same being over and over again. This being is called the help. I'll help you. I look up unto the mountains. Where does my help come from? I can't say this, come from. My help comes from, okay, you got it. Ezer is most of the time ascribed to God in the Hebrew Bible. This is extremely powerful moment of revelation, right? God is the Ezer most of the time. In other words, when you see the woman given the role of Ezer, this is an extremely high role, right? This is an extremely high position, a function, which is akin to that of God. The same way that God helps us in a redemptive, salvatory way, right? When David, I was quoting David, King David, the psalm, right? Where I look up to the mountains, where does my help come from? David is about to be killed, right? By his rival. And he's in a state of complete despair and he's abandoned, right? And he looks up, where is my help? This is the kind of help that the woman is ascribed, is in a way qualified to give to the man. It is the help of a redeemer, not the help of the pianist or, you know, the housewife or the nurse or the teacher's assistant. This is not it, right? We have completely grotesquely misconstrued this word. Are you seeing the powerful function that is given here to the woman? Right? She's meant to be a help to the same way that God is a help to us, the same way that God redeems us, draws us out of the depths. Such was to be the role of the woman, right? Everybody follow me? Put your hand in the screen, right? So this is actually an incredibly powerful position, an incredibly powerful function, which we will see at play over and over again when we study the Song of Songs, the Book of Esther, the Book of Ruth. This will come back. Okay, so a few of your questions. Let's see. Pierre-Antoine, go ahead.
I just want to make sure I have this right. So you're saying that the woman, like, because they're giving this role of like the help, like it's kind of like in accordance to God?
No. It's not in accordance to, not in that sense. It's not like, oh, she helps in the way that God would want her to. No, she helps like God.
Okay.
As God.
Okay,
right?
I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, this is not like, oh, she's submitted to God and therefore she's going to do the right thing, right? This has nothing to do with being submitted to God. This is being given a role which is on the same level of God, right? She's not God, obviously, but she has a function, an attribute which belongs to God in a way, right? Okay, I'm being very scandalous. Granick.
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering sort of what that looks like for a person to do that,
Yes.
to fulfill that role.
I will get there with the Kenegdo. We'll see more details, and then we will see this at play in the narratives of Ruth, of Esther, and of the Song of Songs, right? We will see this at play throughout the class, especially when we get to what I call the Hebrew goddesses, right? But we'll get there. Last points, Taich, go ahead, before I get into the Kenegdo.
Well, keep in mind, if God is not going to be there, somebody needs to, you know, help out. God himself is, I lost my train of thought. Never mind, go ahead.
Do you need help? Do you need help, Taich?
Yeah, from a
You
helper.
need a woman to complete your sentence. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good. Well, let's go more into the details. It will clarify. Okay, Kenegdo, poorly translated. Kenegdo is a word which only occurs once in the Bible, and it's a combination of two words actually in Hebrew, right? Together you don't see it, but in separate words you see it. Ke actually means I'm trying to get the equal sign here, and I can't. Here we are. Ke means like, but neged, right, which is part of the word, means against. This is the part that's not translated, interestingly. We say she's a help-like man. We have the ke. Ke means like, but all translators have missed the neged part of the help, which means against. Okay, so now there's a contradiction. She's a help-like, she's a help against. Is she like or is she against? Is she like or is she different? Is she with me or is she against me, right? And how is this helping me to have this woman who is both with me and against me, right? So let's think about this a little bit. What does it mean? What does it entail that the woman was created not only to be like the man, but against the man? What does this mean and how does this help the situation? How would this be a help? Goldstein, go ahead.
It could be like to kind of call him out if he's thinking something either stupid or just not thinking through situations. So be his help, but also tell him to help him out, see things from different perspectives, and help him learn new things and see things he didn't know, and be kind of the yin and yang back and forth.
Okay, so as you're talking, I'm imagining there's not a single male who would like this experience to happen to them. Right?
Well,
The
God
male.
male to create, that's what we said, that's why he didn't get consent.
Very good. If Adam had known what God had in mind, he would have been like, oh, hell no, right? Absolutely, I like that. So I like the way you're putting it, right? There is a calling out, there is a critique, right? There is a confrontation, which, by the way, we have to talk about this, and we will in the class, has to be done in a certain way in order to be received by the man. We women, if you look at most disintegrating marriages, you will see the woman playing a very powerful role of neged, right? But she's missing, and we'll see that, the kid. We'll talk about this. But for now, let us first acknowledge, yes, there must be a space for the woman to contest, to confront, and to challenge the man. Yes, definitely this is implied in the neged. Now, of course, how she does it is going to be the craft that she has to learn. Okay, make sure you get this, right? The neged, yes, there is a time for the woman to challenge, to confront, because she sometimes sees things that the man doesn't see, or feels things that the man doesn't feel, and she's meant, therefore, to speak up. However, there is a way to do it. There is a craftsmanship in the way to do it, because if you do not master the way to do it, the man will not listen. And this is the problem with most marriages. The woman sees very clearly what is going wrong. And then she just tells him, you are not doing this right. You need to fix this. And now she becomes his mother, the dragon woman, right? The dragon mother that he escaped to be with her, right? So this is where the K comes in, right? To be against, while at the same time, be with. Now, Goldstein, can you rephrase everything you said with this idea that I'm not only the neged, but I'm also the with? I'm not only against, I'm also with. How would you rephrase what you said in a way that would incorporate the K into your neged? Are you seeing what I'm trying to do, Goldstein?
Yeah, I'm not sure how I would rephrase it though, because it still kind of has the same basis, but then you just have to execute it differently.
Yep, exactly. There is a, right, and this is one of the things we will learn in this class, right? How to be a woman who is both neged and K, right? Because we have mastered in the 20th and 21st century the art of neged, and we have crushed the men in our lives with our criticisms and our challenges, right? And we have not, in a way, succeeded in transforming the men in our lives, right? I want to emphasize this because there are actually two types of women, right? Nowadays. And this will also highlight the path I want to take in this class in terms of discovering femininity, right? There's two types of women. There's the woman who is only K, and then there's the woman who's only neged. So the woman who is only K, she's always saying yes, 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 always enduring, always long-suffering, always accepting, always submitting, never saying a single word. Right? And this is the type of woman who eventually becomes a victim, right? This is certainly a type of woman we observe, right? Then there's the opposite, the neged woman. She's always criticizing. She is always complaining. She is always challenging. In fact, she's about to get a divorce tomorrow. And she's the woman, right, that Aretha Franklin describes in Respect, right? The one who, right, will kick him out and throw away the key, right? So these are two urges that we have, by the way, as women. We have both urges within ourselves. We want sometimes to submit. We want sometimes, but we have never learned the art of combining the two, to challenge while remaining with. This is the key. If we could reach this delicate balance between neged and K, our relationships, we would therefore truly fulfill our role as Ezer, right? The reason why women, make sure you write this down, why women have not transformed their relationships, have not redeemed their relationships, are not able to get to that point is simply this, that we have not mastered the art of balancing the neged with the ke. Either we're just ke and we become victims, or we're just neged and we become, you know, we get rid of that man. We push them out of our lives, right? And so one of the things we're going to learn in this class, and in the example of Ruth and Esther and the Song of Songs, the Shulamite and the Song of Songs, is watching how these powerful women who actually effectuate powerful change in their relationship, enormous transformation, not only of the man, but of the whole cosmos, right? How they actually are masters in the balance between neged and ke. This is the secret of their success, and this is the secret of our success in our relationships. Does everybody follow me? Put your hand in the screen if you're seeing where I'm going with this. Okay, let me hear a couple of you. Ahmad, I haven't heard you for a while. Go ahead.
So this might be a little too out there and abstract, but the way that I'm seeing it is that a man's relationship with a woman is like a reflection between his relationship with God. So at times where man feels like God is betraying him, or is he with us or against us, is reflected with our relationship with women when they criticize us, or if they're too overly passive.
Yeah. Yes, in many ways, we have a black and white view. You're either for me or against me, right? As a man. And often it has to do because the woman is acting in this either for or against, right? We haven't learned the art of combining. And that's why men, in a way, are, you know, either become the oppressor or become the victim of the woman's neged, right? So, and there's no transformation. A passive victim woman will operate no transformation in her relationship. A confrontational, challenging woman only, neither will she create any transformation. She will just create separation. This is why we are seeing here a profound key to genuine transformation, which is given to the woman here in this text. This key is given to the woman. The text is saying if the woman can balance the two, she can effectuate powerful transformation, right? And the key, of course, is how are we going to do this? And we're going to be talking about this, right, at length. Alim, go ahead.
I'd like to just like make an analogy, I guess, to our government again, that like it's like peaceful protest versus like violent protest. So when we do this like peaceful protest, although we're like criticizing our government, we're not doing it in a way that's like nege. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But yeah, but when we do violent protests, it just causes destruction and no effective change. Therefore, it's like on the nege side. But if we don't protest at all, like something that's like bad in our government, then it's like the complete submission, which is okay. Yeah. So
I really like that analogy, right? Because politically we have seen that there's two ways of protesting. There's violent protesting, destroy everything, leads nowhere. And then there's the passive, I'm just going to wait this through, you know, like kind of like what people were telling Martin Luther King, right? When he was in jail in Birmingham, you know, the famous letter from Birmingham jail, where he says, you're telling me to wait. You're telling me history will get there eventually. And King says, you know, in this letter, very famous letter, we cannot wait anymore. But notice his strategy. Protest, but never violent. This is ke and neged, right? We are with you. We are not against you, but we will challenge you, right? And if the woman could reach that level of savviness in her personal relationships that Dr. King reached on the political sphere, we would be in a very different place in our marriages, in our romantic relationships, and so forth, right? So there is I really like the connection you're making with Dr. King, because that is exactly what we're seeing here, but on the personal level, right? If the woman can do this in her relationships, there is a lot can happen. Goldstein, go ahead.
You said that the reason why women have not transformed and redeemed their relationship is because we have not mastered the art of balancing the negative with the key. Was there like statistical studies on this? Like, where are you getting this from?
So I'm just observing, right, the two kinds of relationships we have nowadays. For centuries, women were passive, didn't do anything, didn't say anything. the relationships didn't progress, didn't get very far in terms of the equality, in terms of, you know, the any type of relationship where there is domestic violence, where there is, you know, there is no say of the woman. This is not progressive. And then you have the opposite nowadays, right? Where women now have embraced the neged, and now you have the spike of the divorces, right? Spike of single, how do you call it? Single head parenting, right? So what I'm looking at is simply the statistics, right? I'm looking at centuries of, I'm looking in a way at my mother's relationship, and I'm looking at my relationships, right? My mother's generation said nothing, endured, and in a way stunted their own development as women, right? This was my observation. Now we want to be, we want to blossom, we want to be free, but now we're alone, right? So this is where I'm getting and looking back at the text, I'm realizing maybe the issue is that we haven't found a way to put the two together, right? This is me interpreting the text and looking at these two paths. Does this make sense, Goldstein? This is my analysis, right? Looking at simply observing marriages of the generation before me and observing relationships that in my generation. I'm seeing too much ke, the woman remains stunted. Too much neged, the woman ends up alone, right? Does that make sense, Goldstein? Did I answer a little bit your question? It's just my observation.
Yeah, no, I have a different perspective, but I understand your observation. Thanks for explaining.
What's your perspective, Goldstein?
I don't think that the reason for all the higher number of divorces and single parents is because the women are too much neged. It's just because they're any neged at all. For years, they were completely just took anything from the man and didn't have any say, didn't have the option to divorce and to get out when things got bad, and now they do. So people are exercising that option, but it's not that they're too much neged, it's just that now they're actually starting to have the chance to get themselves out of hard situations at all.
Yeah, excellent. I agree with you, right? We are in the century of the neged, right? Past few centuries, couple centuries, right? We have been entering into the neged. And it is creating, right, problems, which you're right, is not the fault of the neged necessarily. But what I'm trying to, so I agree with this view that we need, the neged is good, right? There cannot be too much neged, right? But what I'm saying is that in the process of developing our neged, which is necessary, which we needed to develop, we have forgotten the art of the ke. That's what I'm saying, right? So no, I'm not saying, so I don't want to say, if I said that, I didn't mean it like that. There can never be too much neged. I'm talking about an imbalance.
That we completely forgot the art of the key. I think plenty of people still have it, but I do agree that they're both very, very important and you need them both.
That's the idea, right? So no, some relationships are going well. I have to say, there's a few relationships out there going well. If you look, you will see that, and at least in terms of the woman, she has a balance, right? And if you look at the relationships that are unhealthy, I would argue that there is an imbalance in the way the woman is negotiating her ke and her neged. That's how I would put it, right? This is my hypothesis, right? Which will look at how it works out in the text. Okay, let's see. Pierre-Antoine, thank you, Goldstein. Pierre-Antoine.
I just have a question because I don't think it was sent in the chat, but I never saw the message. But how do you spell those terms about like the key? I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. The key and the neged.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I see that. I put that under alim. So I'm putting it again here for everyone, right? Ezer means help. Sorry. Ke means like. Neged means against, right? And so the proper translation of kenegdo is simply like and against, or with and against him, right? Okay. With and against him. The O means him, right? So that would be, so that should clarify. Thank you. Yeah,
okay, thank you so much.
Okay, great. You guys are really, let's see, there's a couple more. Let me hear Stage and then Williams. Go ahead, Stage.
Yeah, so pretty much what it sounds to me like you're equating a woman to God.
No, I'm not.
Let me continue. You're saying that the woman has yet to reach one or the other. So when she reaches both of those, she will be like God.
No,
She
I
will
haven't.
be like, she will be like, I actually had some jot down. I have many, I have many points here. What are the things that you said it in a sense, it sounded like as if a woman was a man's, almost man's helper, as a man's conscience to an extent. That's what it sounded to me like. When
Yeah.
when God is not here, then the woman needs to take over. Well, woman took over, and we see what happened to the world. Our conscience took the fruit and ate. However, I'm definitely criticizing women purposely. Especially like I said, now if you can clear this up for me, because you said that women need to reach both of these and get into a balance. What do you mean? I mean, for the way I see it, it's like the woman will be like God telling a man what to do. And if what's it called, if a man does something bad, she will nag on him. If he does something good, she will do something good for him. That it sounds like a conscience to me, something that God has given, something holy. I don't know if you're equating a woman to a god.
So let me give you an example that will help you.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Are you familiar with the figure of the prophet in the Hebrew Bible?
Of course.
So prophet is is a human being, but in a way, right, is able to express, right, the will of God to human beings, right? This is a prophetic voice, right? The argument I'm making here, right, is that the woman has a potential. She isn't necessary, right? If she messes up the balance, in my view, she misses her vocation, right? But she has a potential to be such a prophetic voice in her marriage, right? She has the potential to have what you call in Christianity the spirit of prophecy, right? But we have missed this because we haven't learned the proper balance. So we see clearly, but we don't know how to say it, or we don't say it, right? So yes, I know this is a new information, right? Because we have been taught that the man is the head of the woman, meaning that the man is the clairvoyant one. The man is the one who sees and who knows and who deliberates. This is the Greek teaching, right? The man is the intellect, right? The man has reason. Therefore, the man sees clearly what is the next step. And the woman, because she's material and more less spirited, she follows the clairvoyance of the man. The Hebrew text here is reversing here, saying that the woman has the potential for clairvoyance, she has a potential for prophetic remonstrance, right? But she has to learn how to use that gift in a way that does not destroy her spouse, right? And the problem with us is we haven't learned to use that gift. We have either stifled the gift and just been a victim, or we have thrown the gift in the man's face, disfigured him with the gift, and destroyed the marriage, right? So yes, I'm not saying the woman obviously is God, right? But she has been given this very high prophetic honor, right? I think I don't think it is blasphemous to say that the woman has been given the spirit of prophecy, right?
So what is her role? So what is, according to you now, what is the role?
So the role is, it says in the text, to redeem.
To redeem. I mean, I keep assuming that the redemption of which you're speaking is the redemption of the initial sin. Now, what if there was no sin? Then there was no need to redemption. So therefore, that role in particular, the one you're speaking of, makes no sense, because if a human were to have not sinned, there would be no need for redemption. However, a human has sinned.
Yes.
So if there was no sin, there would be no point to woman's role.
Yes, you can say that to a certain degree. That
I wouldn't say that at all. I mean, I think I feel like I'm taking up a lot of time here, but I just want to bring up that I don't think that at all. I believe, honestly, I am completely. One second. My dad is in the room. Okay. Uh, I don't think that if there was no sin, I don't think that the woman would be useless. I just it says as a, um I'm I'm actually honestly uh at the loss of words here because I hear people thinking like this. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't mean to judge because I am no judge. I know who the judge is, and it's Yahweh. I can't say anything. But I am really uh, at a loss of words here because, with all truth and honesty, what you are saying is, in a sense, blasphemous.
I am reading the text, Stage. I am simply reading the text. Let me finish. Let me finish. If you have, we have.
I'm going to stop talking right now. I'm just saying it just sounds blasphemous.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's quite shocking, right? That's why I'm aware that to give, but we have to read.
I just want to say one more thing. You said information. Now, Professor, information, when you're talking about information, this is something that's a fact. Right now, we're speaking about philosophy. This is what I learned. Until philosophy has been proven, it's not science.
We're not doing philosophy. We're doing exegesis. We're looking at the text. So let me clarify for you, since you had a
go ahead.
Let me clarify for you, Stage, since you had a question about this, right? The text is using the word ezer, right? If I look at the biblical narrative, this word is 80% of the time used to describe God saving a human being who is in the mess, right? So in what I'm reading from that is that the woman, obviously she's not supposed to be, right, Jesus Christ, right? This is not this type of redemption that I'm talking about, right? It's not the type of redemption from sin, right? I'm talking about redemption from a bad situation, right? When David is about to be killed by King Saul, and he looks up to the mountains and asks, where is my help? He's not talking about salvation from sin. He's talking about salvation from this horrible situation where he's about to die, right? So I mean redemption in that sense, not in the redemption from sin, but redemption of the man is about to do something that will cost him his life or his health or his success or his whatever, right? And in a way, the woman is placed there as a challenger to perhaps, right, help steer the direction of the marriage or the relationship or even the man sometimes in a different direction, right? So no, she's not taking the place of God. The redemption she's doing is not this the Christ-like redemption from sin. It's just a getting out of trouble in that sense. Does that make sense, Taij? Where did Taij go? Okay, until Stage comes back. Williams, do you have something to say?
Yeah, before I leave, I just want to know, do we follow the syllabus for next class? Do we do Genesis 3 next class or 4?
Yeah, sorry, we're going over. So yes, Genesis 3 for next class. Yes, we're going to be looking at Genesis 3. So yeah, let me get, actually, I think I will dismiss you, but whoever wants to stay on to, who has still questions, we can talk more. I have some time today. My other class is not being taught. So whoever still has questions, you can stay. And whoever needs to go, you can go. Next class is Genesis 3.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Goldstein, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, my hand was up from before. I didn't have another question.
Very well, very well. Okay, great. Whoever's still here, what are your questions?
I'm sorry, my laptop died.
Stage. Okay. Did you hear what I told you? Did you hear the explanation of redemption that I was giving? Stage.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, my laptop died.
Oh gosh. Okay. Did you hear what I was saying about the meaning of redemption, the way I'm understanding?
Well, as far as you, I heard you explain that it's not redemption in a sense of redeeming one from the sin.
Yeah.
But from then on, I'm not exactly sure what.
That's it. So in a way, the woman is not supposed to be God in the sense of redeeming from sin. She's like when David needs help in a very difficult situation, she has this type of power to steer or to lead the relationship or even her partner in a different direction, which is life-giving instead of death-giving. Right?
Okay, so you mean like a water bottle, like water. If you
Yeah, you could say that, although it's a water bottle is a little bit
no, I mean like
Here-
something that is necessary for life.
no, it's a little different because
No?
there is an element of wisdom here that I think the Greeks have omitted, right? The Greeks are putting all the wisdom in the male, right? They're saying the male is the one who knows what to do, therefore he should lead. And what the text here is saying is that the woman also has knowledge and therefore can also lead sometimes in the relationship. But of course, we have to master this balance, right? So in that sense, that the woman also has wisdom and has clairvoyance, right? And therefore needs to speak up and steer the relationship or the man in a different direction. But of course, the question is how to do it in a way that is really working, right?
Well, I have other opinions and I have other thoughts, and I told you I won't talk about other scriptures to what's called support my. So you will hear from me in other when we work on other scriptures, other books of the
Okay, well
Bible.
done, Spayet. You're keeping to the text. I appreciate that. Good. Okay, any one of you still have a comment that you need to clarify?
I do. Can I say? I
Yeah.
just want to ask, because I am on your upper level class, because you're teaching 2 classes here, right? And more than like learning about everything, and I appreciate everything, I also want to learn how to teach, because eventually I want to teach philosophy. I want to do the doctors. So you ask for us to keep to the text, but sometimes you give your personal perspective. So you also like get off of the text. And I just wanna know, because for me it feels a little bit like I'm being doctrinated, like almost like it feels like to me that you have like an idea of what you want to teach, besides the text, and you put it out there. And the only thing is gets hard for, it's like, I'm not saying that it's a fault to you, a fault to me. I create walls, because I feel like I'm being indoctrinated, and I come from a religious family where I was very indoctrinated. And the reason why I studied philosophy is because I don't want to be taken in one direction. I just want to be given what is given and let me find out. So I can be crazy on what I'm saying, but I just want to share it with you because I come to your class eager to learn about the Bible, but also to learn how to be a professor.
Good. So yeah, so I like what you're saying, because it's true. I do have an interpretation, right? But the rigor here has to do that. My interpretation, I make sure, I'm very careful that it comes from the text, that it doesn't contradict the text, right? So in that sense, right? But yeah, and you saw that there were many different interpretations of a given text. Why? Because these texts are meant to make us think. They're not just things we should believe, right? These are the wisdom literature. These are the philosophical texts. So if a text, and we saw with Ahmad, for example, he looked at the tree and he saw this. Astayich looked at the tree and he saw that. But they're both looking at the tree, and this is why I'm happy, right? They're looking at the tree and they're drawing wisdom from the tree and guidance, right? So for me, the text that we're studying is meant to be to give us wisdom, but depending on who you are, you will eat different fruits, right? You will take different elements of the text. So I also have interpretations, but of course, remember, I have the whole time in the beginning, and I'm listening also, right, to your different interpretations, and I'm open also to seeing a different way of the text. So I guess the element of rigor is that we need, whatever we say should be in the text, or at least should stem from the text. That would be the element of rigor. But there is freedom to interpret things differently, and sometimes to have opposite interpretations, right? So if I'm interpreting, but I will also give you my own work, right? My own interpretations, which you need to memorize and learn for the test. Yes. Why? Because I'm showing you. The reason why I think it's important to remember the interpretations I'm giving you, right, is because I'm showing you a different way of reading the text than the classic one. And I want you to be aware of this interpretation. And then, of course, you can make up your own mind, right? I'm sure a lot of you are going to make up your own minds, but you need to see the interpretation I'm giving. Why? Because it is the woman's interpretation which is missing through centuries of interpretation. So this voice that I'm speaking, which is not just me, I'm speaking in the voice of the many women that I have learned from, right? As I'm studying this text, I'm a spokesperson for a number of feminist and womanist voices, not just me, right? But this is an important voice, which is why you have to study it. And then, of course, you can come up with new interpretations, right? I was taught this text by my father, who came from the patriarchal, right, context, and he taught me his voice very well. And having digested his voice, my voice then began to emerge, right? So this is what I'm hoping for you guys, is digest my voice, but then I'm expecting you to learn to do this yourself. Am I making sense, Olivera?
Yes, you're totally making sense. Thanks for explaining.
Good. Okay, let's see. Before I get back to stage, is there anyone else who hasn't spoken yet and needs to speak? Okay, Alim is just listening. King, anything? King?
Just listening as well.
Just listening. Okay, you guys just want to see us fight. That's all you want to do. Ahmad, anything? Okay, let me ask my friend here. Kellyanne, any questions?
No, I have any question.
Okay, great. Who is this Naomi who just arrived? Naomi, we have no class today. If you're in the 4:45 class, we don't have class.
Oh, okay, thanks.
I put the video on the playlist. You can.
Oh, okay, that's my bad. Thank you.
All right, stage. Go ahead. I'm gonna stop the recording though.
With okay,